You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mile You're In podcast. And this time, we got a milestone, episode number 50. Some people, that's not a big thing to them. Other people, that's a huge thing to them. I don't know. I saw something, I remember when I first got into podcasting, that said most podcasts last I think 3 to 5 episodes or something like that. And most hosts just give up after a few episodes. We here to stay, baby. I don't know. I forget now how long it's been, 2-3 years. I mean, I ain't putting out content every single week like I had originally hoped for, but I have been getting more and more consistent as time goes on. And again, I'm just trying to put out quality material. I don't want to just put out something just to put out something. You know what I'm saying? Before I get into this episode's topic, as always, my Patreon supporters, I truly, sincerely appreciate you. Becky, Francine, and the anonymous supporter, thank you for continuously showing love each and every month through supporting on Patreon. If you're interested in helping out the show, the link's in the show notes. You know how to find it. If not, hit me up on social media and I can explain more. This week's episode, it really got inspired by something that happened on Friday. I think traffic sucks everywhere, to be honest. But specifically in like high popular traffic areas like New York, Los Angeles, and down here where I live in South Florida, it's just, especially during rush hour, it is just frustrating, aggravating. It's sometimes I feel like I could get to work and get home faster if I ran or at least rode a bike. I just feel like having a vehicle is a disadvantage at this point. It's just become so overpopulated. But I found myself being very stressed out and feeling very negative on my way to work and on my way home. And it was kind of taking a toll on me. Like I mentally just, I'd go into work not feeling it because I was just drained already on the way there. And then going home, I was frustrated. And so when I'd get home and, I would use that, and I still do, I'll use that like frustration and everything that's built up to kind of put out some fast, hard speed runs. But other days like today where I don't run, I come home and I'm kind of just drained. I'm like, it's mentally and physically and emotionally exhausting. And Friday I was on my way to work and I just had this thought to do something different, to try to switch things up and change things up, because no matter what route I took, no matter what I listened to, whether it was a podcast or music, talking to somebody on the phone, like it wasn't it didn't make a difference. Like it didn't matter. So I had this thought, like, let me go through my contacts, and whoever I feel led to, I'm just going to send them not just a regular text message, but I'm going to send them a voice note and make it more personal. And whatever I feel led to say and thank them for or show appreciation for, I want to recognize them, and I want to, as we see lately, I want to give them their flowers while they're still around, type of thing. And because a lot of people in my life have come and gone, some by choice and some not. And I realized, there's a lot of people I don't talk to on a day-to-day basis. Some that are kind of new in my life and some that have been around for many years. And I just, whoever at that moment on the way to work, as I would look through at the intersections and see a name, if I felt led, I messaged them. And I'll tell you what, like my attitude really changed. Like I felt really good and I got to work and I just felt better. I felt happier. And then like throughout the day, I started getting responses and replies to those messages and like just the feedback. Like I didn't want anybody to say anything nice back to me. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it other than just trying to change things up, because like I didn't like the way I was feeling on the way to work all the time. And I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my vehicle working. I'm grateful for so many things, and I didn't want that to be unnoticed. But it's just like something had to change, right? And just throughout the day, the messages, the texts, some of them sent me voice messages back. It's just like the things that I said had such an impact on them, especially some of them in that moment. Like it was divine. It was like I was supposed to say that to them at that time. And it was one of those things where I felt like I was really used. Like I did what I was supposed to do. And people's lives were slightly altered and changed in a good way because of that. And that made it real powerful. And I got emotional listening to some of the things that they said back to me. One or two of them, I even got emotional while telling them what I was telling them, because it kind of hit me and realized some of the things that I've shared with them, or vice versa, and some of the things I've gone through that they've helped me with. And it just was a reminder that sometimes it's not that we're taking people for granted. We're not taking things for granted in life. It's just sometimes you just forget. You get so caught up in everyday life and everything else that happens that you sometimes just forget about the things that you're extremely grateful for. And we don't just want to do that, as I've mentioned in other episodes, on Thanksgiving or the big holidays. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want to do that as often as possible. And I don't want to overdo it now. I don't want to do it just to do it. I want to do it when I felt led or feel led to do it. But it's something I want to encourage you guys to do as well. Consider, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, in the next few days, just sit down when you have a moment, especially if you're like really stressed out about something, and just scroll through your contacts, and whoever you feel led to at that moment, just press the record button and send them an audio message and just say whatever's on your heart at the moment, and watch what happens. Like, you'll be used, and you'll be surprised how good you feel after doing it. And the thing that really kind of hit me when I thought about it, when I thought back, like, all right, I'm getting something out of it. I'm helping somebody. Like, what was the lesson out of this? And it was kind of that mentality of nothing changes if nothing changes, right? I could have kept going through the motions of the rides to work and back home, and doing the same thing and trying the same things over and over again, hoping that one would help. And one day it might here or there, and vice versa, but it wasn't consistent. And I even noticed today when I was driving home, I almost wanted to do it again, because I'm like, man, that felt so good last week, and now I'm getting stressed out again. Like, it's nothing changes if nothing changes, right? It's that mentality of insanity, doing the same things over and over again, expecting change. It's most likely not going to happen. And then I started like just brainstorming all the different scenarios that I've dealt with. If you've been listening long enough, you know about the struggles I had with trying to hit the 10th 100 mile finish, and just being stuck on those 3 DNFs. And it was like, man, I know how to do this. I've done 9 already. Like, why can't I just do one more? Like, what is going on? I haven't really changed anything. And it was like kind of just like deep diving into what was causing his DNFs, and I realized it was the chafing was becoming more and more of an issue, especially during the hotter months and the hotter races. And I looked into different clothing and accessories and things that I could use, and when I finally found the right thing that I was able to test out during my training, bam, the DNF streak was over, and I hit my goal of 10 100 milers. And even the one that I DNF'd after that had nothing to do with chafing. It was just mentally I was not there for personal reasons. When I was, and I slightly is that a word? I hinted at the Baker Act, incident, right? And how I was dealing with depression and I had become an alcoholic, and I thought that was going to help, and I was avoiding medication and, still keeping certain things and people in my life. And after that incident, it forced me to speak to somebody and to get the help I needed, and to stop drinking, and to cut out the toxic people and the toxic things in my life. And although, I still deal with depression and stress and anxiety here and there, it's at such a lower level. It's almost minimal, almost non-existent. Sometimes I forget that I have it until it creeps back up, and I'm like, man, I haven't felt that in a while, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm like, man, I wish it was fully gone. And it's just that's life. You know what I mean? We're all dealing with it in one way or another. Some just it's a little tougher than others. It beats us up a little bit more, depending on what it is. But I kept brainstorming, and I was thinking about the whole divorce and past relationships even before that, and realizing the flaws of my own in those relationships. And it made me think of a conversation I had with somebody where I kind of broke it down that this may happen with women, but I feel like it's more so with men, that most men don't want to be changed. So the moment a woman tries to change them, and they're not trying to change them for in a negative way, they're trying to change them to be better. They're trying to encourage them to do more. Like I said in the other episode, they're trying to change them to not be complacent. It's okay to be content, but they're trying to say, hey, I see more in you. I see that you're capable of more, and you can do better, and you could be better. You could even treat me better. We could have a better future, things like that. And a lot of men, they're so comfortable where they're at, they don't want to be changed. So they look for women that will accept them for who they are and not going to change them. And that might last for a little bit, but eventually a woman's going to get tired of that. And she's going to start hinting at some of those changes. And then that cycle continues. They find the next person, the next woman that's going to accept them for who they are and not try to change them. And you have to, if you really want that long-term lifetime relationship, if you really want true love, then you're going to have to put some effort in and make some changes and recognize your flaws and work on them. You can't just, at work we're doing this, we just got done doing this Strength Finders book, and they were saying how you should focus more on your strengths and less on your weaknesses. And I was like, yeah, I get that too. Build up your strengths, but also you got to work on the weaknesses, because if you can better those supporting things in your life, it also benefits those strengths, or at least that's how I look at it. Maybe I need to write the Strength Finders 3.0 book and touch on that. But and then here, I'm thinking about the podcast, right? When I first started, it was the website, and I realized after 5 or so years, the website thing was starting to fade. Podcast was becoming a bigger thing, and my reach was starting to dwindle and moving more towards the podcast. So I kind of ventured into this more and less of the podcast, or less of the website. And then I realized you got to do more than just posting it. You got to advertise, you got to network, you got to connect. The Patreon thing that I talk about at the beginning of every episode, you have to find ways to expand your reach. You can't just sit there and expect, I'm going to put this out and people are going to find it. You got to get out there and put in work. Like the artists that are trying to get record deals, you know what I'm saying? You're not just going to upload your music on SoundCloud or Spotify or wherever. You got to promote it. You got to be out there. Back in the day, it was passing out CDs. I don't know what they do these days, but I guess it's just social media you're promoting. But look at that too. The trends on social media are always changing. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, because people get bored of that, especially society these days. It's that Vine mentality. Anything longer than 30 seconds to a minute, y'all might have already turned off this podcast. You might not even be hearing this message. But yeah, other examples I thought of was sports teams that are like consistently performing poorly, and they're not making changes to the strategies, like the play calling. They're not changing up the coaching staff or the rosters. They just hope for better results while doing the same thing over and over again with the same players and the same staff. But success often requires you to adapt and improvement. Sticking with that athlete sports topic, athletes who stick to the same training routines without evolving or adjusting their techniques may not achieve the desired improvements. So like, if you really want to excel, athletes need to consistently and constantly adapt and refine their training methods. It's just like bodybuilders. When I used to work out, like, you could do the same sets and the same weights and the same routines, but eventually your muscles get used to that and you're not challenging them anymore. So you're not growing. You hit that wall and that hurdle, and you're not getting over it. You're not breaking through it. So you got to constantly change things up, shock the muscles. It's that uncomfortable sense that makes you grow and takes you out of that comfort zone and forces you to try new things and different things and learn how to adjust and make it work and make it happen. In careers, if someone doesn't acquire new skills, certifications, higher education, or just in general exploring new opportunities, you're going to find yourself stuck in the same position or job without progress, and you're going to get bored unless you really, really love what you do. And if you do, that's cool. But you can't expect to get promoted if you're not adding to your skill set and what you can do for the company. There's always someone else, especially if it's a larger company, there's always going to be someone else trying to improve themselves. So if you're not, you're always going to be behind and losing out against them. It's that same mentality that when I used to wrestle, you know, a lot of the coaches and my dad and other people would say, well, while you're sitting on the couch, what do you think so-and-so's doing? You know, and sometimes that could be a little bit much. Like, I'm sure there were days they were resting. Every single time I was sleeping or taking a shower or eating or watching TV, they weren't out training 24/7. So it's like, I get what you're saying. I appreciate the motivation and encouragement, but it's not always the case. But in general, you should be doing something, because I can guarantee you your competition every so often is doing something. And if you're doing nothing, they're always going to be one step ahead of you when it comes to that. When you think about your health and fitness, individuals who follow the same unhealthy habits and lifestyles but hope for improved health outcomes are just another example, because positive change in our health often requires modifying our diet, exercises, and lifestyle. Y'all see the stuff I eat and drink on my runs, okay? Don't judge me. That's why I don't judge people when they eat and drink what they do. But the point here is, if I was upset about my weight and I was trying to lose weight, like I did in the past, and I mentioned it, like I was able to lose a lot of weight when the goal was there and I was motivated and dedicated to that, right? So I knew I had to make changes, and I made those changes, because doing what I was doing was not working. If anything, it had the negative effect. I was gaining weight instead of losing it. So, I see a lot of these things now on TikTok where all these influencers are telling you how to gain muscle, with eating a certain amount of protein and things like that, where people were like, oh, I'm just, but I'm in the gym grinding, I'm doing the weights. And it's like, okay, but is that changing anything? You're doing the same thing. If you're not changing and adding, then you're not really benefiting from it. So you got to change your diet. You got to change certain things, less cardio maybe. So there's always something you can do to change to get better. Again, if that's your goal. Relationships. If a couple does not communicate, grow, or adapt to each other's needs and changes, the relationship is going to become stagnant, leading to dissatisfaction or separation. People change, as well as their desires, wants, needs, and communication is a key, so that the person, your partner, the other person in the relationship can be aware of this. You have to communicate that. You can't just expect them to know. So you can get upset that they're not recognizing the signs you may think you're showing, but if you're not communicating that, they're not going to they're not going to know. They can only assume, and if they assume, most of the time they're going to be wrong. You know what they say about assumptions. When you assume, it makes out of you and me. You see what I'm saying? Anyways, financially, if you don't alter your spending habits, you're going to find it hard to save money and live more comfortably and be able to treat yourself to the things you like or the things you want to experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you break it down, every one of these examples, the common theme is expecting different results without making changes. And that's unrealistic, because progress and improvement typically requires proactive efforts and a willingness to evolve. And if you don't have that, you're just going to be stuck in that same place. So now let's take the previous episode. You may not be complacent. You're trying to get better. You're trying to do better. You want better, but you're not, like, you've tried these certain things are not working. Switch it up. You got to try something different. You got to have a different approach. If you can't come up with it on your own, you got to do the research and find it. Study people who've been there and who are successful in that. And that's the one thing I do love about social media, especially TikTok, because you put something in and you can find a lot of people. You just got to be careful who you listen to. You got to do your research on them too, and go down that rabbit hole. But the point is, you're not the only one trying to do what you're trying to do. Someone's done it. Someone else is doing it. You know, someone succeeded. Someone failed. There's a lot you can pick and choose from. A lot of brains you could pick from and learn from, and gain expertise and find out what works, what doesn't. Get ideas, try it, because what may not have worked for them might work for you, and vice versa. So just because something did it or didn't work for them, you gotta give it a shot yourself. So with all that said, because now I'm kind of inspired to go run. I wasn't really gonna run tonight. It's kind of like, I don't know, I just getting up and talking, and now I'm kind of motivated. It's Halloween. It's the last day of the month. I can get a couple more miles in from my tracker. Anyways, until the next episode, consider what you're doing or not doing to better your opportunity to push past the past, whatever barrier is holding you back from reaching the goals in your life that you're chasing. Thank you guys for, if this is your first episode, thank you for listening for the first episode for the first time. If you've been here since day one and listened to all 50, you should be supporting me on Patreon. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. You see where I'm going? Like, you supported me that long. You could help with the advertising and get the reach out there longer. But seriously, man, I didn't know if I was gonna make it this far. I thought really I would have stopped doing this a long time ago. I've had long breaks where I thought I was done, but the feedback I get from you guys is always it's nice. It's nice to hear that people can relate and that I can help them, and that's kind of what inspired me to do what I did on Friday with those text messages. So again, reach out to some people and just show your appreciation for them. You'll realize how much better that makes you feel, and what a difference that makes for them in their lives, and just consider what you can switch up to get a little bit closer to the goals that you have. And again, thank you for your support with each and every episode. I really appreciate you guys. Go run the mile you're in.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.